All right, ladies and gentlemen, hope you are ready for some wisdom of the ages. Some wisdom that might help us change our lives for the better, increase the quality of our lives, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time to dive into some Wednesday wisdom, reading from Wisdom of the Ages, Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's wonderful book, also subtitled 60 Days to Enlightenment. Isn't that a beautiful idea? But here we are on September 7th of 2022, and it's almost 1 p.m. in the afternoon where I am. But we started reading this back, I believe, in January. And so it's been far past 60 days, but it's been a fantastic journey, ladies and gentlemen. And today's teaching, today's lesson comes to us from not only Dr. Wayne Dyer and the extrapolations of him and myself for the purposes of expanding our own knowledge and understanding, so teaching, and just to kind of see what comes through us in conversation and commentary. But Paramahansa Yogananda, ladies and gentlemen, is going to teach us about what Wayne Dyer titles this chapter here today, this few pages, is suffering. Interesting. And I know it always goes a different direction than I expect it to go. I don't pre-read these, ladies and gentlemen, at least at this point. Maybe one day we'll go into a book that I have read already, because I know there's quite a few on my shelf over here that are fantastic. And so Paramahansa Yogananda lived 1893 to 1952. Born to be a devout, well-to-do Bengali family, born to a devout, well-to-do Bengali family, Paramahansa Yogananda graduated from Calcutta University in 1915 and established the Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles in 1920 to offer a science of spiritual exploration for self-harmony, leading to a more compassionate and peaceful world. His autobiography of a yogi included millions to India's introduced, pardon me, millions to India's age-old philosophy of yoga and its time-honored tradition of meditation. And so, as you can see, Yogananda has had a huge impact on society. And it's amazing. Said there he was 1893, so 90 to 03 to 13 to 20. So it's fascinating, the progress of his life and how he went through, graduated Calcutta University in 1915, and then went to Los Angeles and created this self-realization fellowship in the school of spiritual exploration. And then the autobiography of a yogi, if you've never heard of that book, you should pick it up. It's one of the most popular in this spiritual, kind of realm that I'm in as far as researching the Tao and the wisdom of the ages and spirituality and, self-realization, self-actualization and manifestation and all of these things, ladies and gentlemen, finding peace in our lives and creating happiness, creating peace, and creating our lives on purpose. Yo, his autobiography of a yogi introduced millions to India's age-old philosophy of yoga and its time-honored tradition of meditation. And so let's dive right into what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to teach us here, not only about Yogananda, but what Yogananda had to say here in this little excerpt from the sayings of Yogananda. Man has falsely identified himself with the pseudo soul or ego. And we've talked a lot about the ego, ladies and gentlemen. When he transfers his sense of identity to his true being, the immortal soul, he discovers that all pain is unreal. He no longer can even imagine the state of suffering. That's a pretty deep one. And that's a pretty easy one to argue if you find yourself being the devil's advocate there. Or, the opposite opinion. It's like, are you telling me that there was a way that we can go beyond pain and suffering in our mind? And I believe that is just what Yogananda was telling ourselves, because we have falsely identified ourselves with our ego. But what we must do, I'm stuttering a lot today. That's kind of funny, but I seem to be laughing less than normal about it, which is fine. But when we are able to transfer our sense of identity to this true being, to our true being, the immortal soul, we discover that all pain is unreal. That's fascinating. So Wayne Dyer begins here by saying Yogananda's message of divine inspiration, that it is possible to imagine suffering is impossible. That's these paradoxes. Every time we do this, ladies and gentlemen, there's these fantastic sentences that make the mind go, what? You're telling me that it is possible to imagine suffering is impossible. All right, what the heck are we talking about here, Chase? May seem impossible to you. So I've decided and included this statement from a man I deeply admire, Wayne says, precisely to encourage us to look at this business of suffering in a way that will very likely, lead us to see our life from an entirely new perspective. And that's what all this work is about, is changing the way we experience life by changing our general viewpoint and outlook on life. And so, I always explain that in a much deeper way, but sometimes it's better to just stay simple and practical. And so you are invited to let go, Wayne continues, with some firmly entrenched ideas and the false identity Yogananda refers to. In the essence of your true being, what Yogananda calls your immortal soul, or your higher self, or, we're always talking about these things, ladies and gentlemen. Pain is unreal. In the essence of our true being, I'm saying this again because this is a deep, hard to get subject here. In the essence of our true being, so that which is not the body, nor we're human beings having a spiritual experience, or we are actually spiritual beings having a human experience, a temporary human experience. It's up to you to decide, ladies and gentlemen, but I choose the latter. And so, in this essence of our true being, what Yogananda calls the immortal soul, pain is unreal. We, though, live in a world that is real, with problems that are definitely real, and with elements of suffering that we all know to be real, ladies and gentlemen. So we're not denying reality here. But so the advice to transfer our sense of identity and enter into a space in which we can no longer even imagine suffering probably seems impossible. Because, we're so trapped in all of these things that are going on all the time, and it's just got to be real. It makes me think of the Bill Hicks thing, where it's like life is just, I'll never get it exactly correct, but it's like life is like a ride on a roller coaster. You go up and down, and there's thrills and chills and funny colors, and it's loud noises, and it seems real. And we're on this ride for a while, and somebody comes to tell us, hey man, it's just a ride. And we're like, no, this has got to be real. Can't you see all of these things that are happening? I'm going up and down, and there's bright lights and funny colors and loud noises. And there's these people that come to us and try to remind us, like, life is just a ride, man. I think the comedian part of that, Bill Hicks was a great comedian. I hope I'm getting his name right. But funny part is these people come to us, he goes, and try to remind us of these things. And you know what we do to these people? We kill these people because we just can't take it that life is just a ride. It just can't be. Just for those of us that are I'm glad you put it that way because this is now just coming through me. This is what this is all about, just the flowing of thoughts. But it's like, it has to be real. There are definitely, we though live in a world that is real with problems that are definitely real and with elements of suffering that we know to be real. But it's like an answer that works for me, Wayne Dyer continues, because we need to remember if we can identify ourselves with this part of ourselves that knows that it is just a ride. Wayne continues, an answer for that works for me is to become as a spectator, and we've talked about this a lot with the, changing our thoughts and changing our life. It's like you must become the witness, become the spectator, become detached. Anyways, when I lose an attachment, yep, see, there it is, to the impermanent, the world of the physical, the world of transition and change, and everything is always changing and, changing form and shape and coming and going, birthing and dying, and all of these things. A great teacher of mine, Wayne says, Nisargadatta Maharaj, put it this way: you do not suffer. Only the person you imagine yourself to be suffers. You cannot suffer. Once again, he refers to your true being as that which is quite distinct from your ego body. Overcoming your inclination to believe so strongly in your suffering by being the spectator to your life is an awesome challenge. And I think if you're bringing physical pain into the idea here, that's kind of pushing this to the extreme, although that may be possible for, those who are the highest level meditators and masters on these kind of practices and ideas and traditions and wisdoms and philosophies, and mostly practices. But it's like when the term suffering is coming in here, think of life, the things that the ups and downs and the thrills and chills and the, all of these crazy things that we experience in life that we call suffering. But when we get to this greater awareness, this greater understanding of the nature of reality in our lives and have a new perspective, a new general outlook on life by, all of the work that we've been doing, it's like you begin to see the lessons. You begin to see that it's a school and that we're going through great teachings. And some of the greatest teachers in our lives are those events that were the struggles, those events that were the suffering, ladies and gentlemen. And so that's that's where this is the focus or understanding that I'm getting from this. It's like dealing with life, like how the Tao Te Ching is the book of the great way. It's like there is this way that we can go through life with this new understanding. And in turn, have 1,000% less understanding because of a greater awareness. Anyways, something else popped into my mind, but I'll stop rambling there. And if you're getting value, ladies and gentlemen, leave a yes in the comments and let me know. Because I love to see who watches these videos. If you don't comment, I don't really know who watches. And so, because there's not like a list, like it tells you, oh, you got 24 views or something, which is up from before, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you're new here, nice to meet you. And I hope to have you in the future for more Tuesday Tao, changing our thoughts, and more Wednesday wisdom, the wisdom of the ages, and more shorts and more books in the future. And shoot, eventually my writings and my books. I got a stack of writings over here that we might dive into one day eventually, but Also, leave me a comment if you want me to dive into those stacks of writings. But so the point here was suffering versus lessons. That was what the point that I was making. And so overcoming, continuing with what Wayne Dyer is saying here from his great teacher, Nisargadatta Maharaj. He's also a person to look up if you've never discovered Nisargadatta. But I believe we did a chapter from him earlier. Anyways, overcoming your inclination to believe so strongly in your suffering by becoming the spectator to your life is an awesome challenge. Let's take the most common kind of suffering, which is called pain. Oh, okay, so he flips it on me there, ladies and gentlemen. Suppose you are in some kind of pain, such as a severe headache, and you don't want to hear some swami telling you that it isn't real or it isn't the only, it isn't only in your imagination. But bear with me here for just a moment to see if you can let go of your attachment to that suffering. What if you could become a spectator to that ache in your head by actually transferring your sense of identity to what Yogananda calls your true being? By putting your attention on that ache, you could identify its precise location, describe its size, its color, its shape, and any and all characteristics of it that you perceive. If you concentrated long enough, you could actually move that pain from one point in your head to another. Once you have accomplished this movement, you have the new awareness that you can move it right out of your head as well. It's worth a practice. It's worth a try. It's worth meditating on and contemplating and practicing. All right, worth a practice doesn't mean one time. It's like you don't go do 12 push-ups and think you're going to be strong. You have to do a multitude over a multitude of days, repetitive for a long period of time. And then you get great results, ladies and gentlemen. This is the same with anything in life. I never could have painted without continual effort, continual practice. That goes into yesterday's teaching about striving and arriving. So being able to arrive while we are practicing. All right, getting off subject again. But just this, what that was just saying there. So putting attention on that ache, we can identify its precise location, describe its color, shape, any and all characteristics that we perceive. So we're doing this in our mind. And if we concentrate long enough, we can move the pain from one point to another. Once you have accomplished this movement, you have the new awareness that you can move it out of your head as well. This means that the suffering was eliminated by our becoming the observer and detaching ourselves completely from the pain itself. Some call this activity mind control, but I see it as a powerful means to stop identifying ourselves with what we have come to call suffering. And I'll say it once again, for all of the things that come to our lives, the ups and downs, and the thrills and chills, and the funny colors, and the bright lights. But most of the suffering we experience outside of outright physical pain occurs because of our identification with our own self-importance, which once again is our ego, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, I think of our ego, just to describe that, if that's catching anybody up there, our own self-importance, the view of ourselves, the mask, the persona that we wear in life to appear as who we want to appear as, to who we want to impress, and who we want to, you know, the kind of impressions we want to give to other people, how we want to fit in, and the status, and all of these kind of things make up our ego, ladies and gentlemen. The competition part of us that wants to do better and get more and, you know, have control and power. And All of these characteristics of our worldly physical self, maybe as another way to describe the ego, are not characteristics of our spiritual, non-physical higher self, this our true identity, which is what they keep referring to as here. And so, with that being, described there, let us continue, ladies and gentlemen. If you're getting value, consider subscribing and share this with somebody you think is like-minded and could also get value out of this. And so he continues. So I'll just reread that sentence. Most of the suffering that we experience outside of just physical pain occurs because of our identification with our own self-importance. As I was planning how I would approach this topic of ego and suffering, ego and suffering. I got to write that down, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for just a second. Actually, I won't make you wait. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot that I can pause and continue the recording. But that part about ego and suffering there, it's so powerful. It's like that's something worth thinking about in its own right a long time, is the relationship between our connection to our ego and the amount of suffering that we have in our life. It's like, as I was planning, Wayne continues, how I would approach this topic of ego and suffering, I recalled a conversation I had had with my close friend Deepak Chopra. And if you've never looked up Deepak Chopra, check him and his lectures out. Those are deeply profound, especially the ones with him and Wayne together. So much fun. As I debated whether to include what he had told me in that conversation, the telephone rang. And sure enough, it was Deepak calling. It's one of those synchronicities where you're like, whoa, whoa, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we've all had those kind of weird things where you think of something and then the next you look over and it's like on the side of the car or, the side of the truck next to you. You're like, man, I was just thinking about. Anyways, I told him that only 10 seconds before I had just jotted down his name on a piece of paper to remind myself about what he had said about ego and suffering. And I meant to call him to get it correctly. That would have been funny if I had just jotted down his name before reading that, but I jotted down ego and suffering. Eliminate suffering by understanding the connection between ego and suffering. He chided me, saying, I got your message in the unified field, and so I called you. Wouldn't it be great to have friends like that, ladies and gentlemen? What he had told me was how a Buddhist teacher had been asked what one single thing he always what one single thing could he always remember and use when he felt himself in any state of suffering. The teacher said, just remember this and you will never suffer again. Nothing should be clung to as me or mine. Here are the 9 words that, if repeated often enough, particularly when we feel sorrow and therefore suffering, could eliminate that false identity with the ego. The ego is all about self-importance. So once again, it's remember that nothing should be clung to me or as mine. I should cling to nothing as me or as mine. It's profound and it's confusing and boggling, but it's there it is. The things that we cling and attach ourselves to is, I think, the real lesson here. Deepak and I talked for a few more moments, and he said, as long as you are writing about the ability to end suffering, I suggest that you give your readers a phrase from the Ojibwe Native American tribes that I use on myself whenever I get too involved in my own self-importance by getting upset over some trivial matter, he said. I simply repeat this phrase to myself, and almost by magic, the mental suffering disappears. So we're dealing with all kinds of philosophies around suffering here, ladies and gentlemen. So here it is. he says, from the Ojibwe via Deepak Chopra, through Wayne, through me, ladies and gentlemen, to you. Quote, now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by the great winds across the sky. Just let that one sink in, ladies and gentlemen. Take a nice deep breath and take another one while I read this again. Now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. Just fantastic. Just fantastic. It is a wonderful image to call into play when you feel, Wayne continues, that you are suffering and you become immersed in your own self-importance. As a spectator, you can observe your suffering. From that vantage point, you can actually choose to love it and give yourself to it completely. See, this is another one of them practices. So we can observe the suffering, and then from that detached viewpoint as the spectator, we can actually choose to love it. And I like to add, see it as a lesson. And if it isn't a lesson yet, see it as what we need to try to figure out for ourselves as a detached lesson, and give ourselves to it completely with the love. You can treat it as a great gift that will help you let go of that identity crisis with your pseudo soul, as Yogananda described, and to put your inner attention and energy on that which is able to watch all that sorrow from a completely detached point of view. This is an extremely liberating approach to end all suffering. But it's also, I would add, very just makes you go, wow, really? But I know, because I have researched this and practiced these kind of philosophies in my life. And when you hear people saying these things and talking about suffering, and it's you begin to feel overwhelmed, like this is just too much to tell people. And so the way I'll describe that it's worked for me in my life, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's like when you have events or circumstances or things, just even when it's simple things, like you go to take out the trash and the bottom of the trash bag rips out halfway out there. Suffering. It can be simple, ladies and gentlemen. Usually when people hear the word suffering, they think of the most terrible forms and the most terrible things that there can possibly be. But we're talking about having a greater quality of life no matter where and when we are. And so, keep in mind that this could be if you simply drop your coffee. Or, there are many forms of suffering in life, and usually the great sufferings isn't so much the super, intense examples that we tend to think of immediately when we hear the word suffering, but really it's the millions of little things that we allow to cause suffering in our life when we can choose a new path. We can choose a new emotion. We can regulate our state and our emotion by understanding that we are influencing our realities rather than our realities are influencing us. And when we can really get to that point, and you can really get there, then things start to change for you, and you start to realize that you are transcending suffering in many ways in your life. The areas where you used to suffer because of the millions of little things, or the 10,000 things, as Lao Tzu would describe it. I almost called him Dr. Lao Tzu. Dr. Lao Tzu, ladies and gentlemen, but no. You know where I'm going. This is fantastic, and let's continue on here, ladies and gentlemen, before I ramble for an hour long. Unless you enjoy the hour-long rambles, just let me know and smash the like button. And so, what Wayne Dyer was saying here, this is an extremely liberating approach to ending all suffering. When you live as Yogananda did, you can actually say, I can't even imagine the state of suffering. Somehow I can hear Yogananda saying that you should learn to rejoice in suffering. And so there's these paradoxical words here, ladies and gentlemen. So don't take this the wrong way, please. I can hear Yogananda saying that you should, for everything is done by God, by the Tao, by the force, the grand organizing design and intelligence for one's own betterment. Everything is done by God for one's own betterment. The pain is a messenger to remember our source, and your soul being blown across the sky, invisible though it may be. And then pain is not pain anymore, and suffering is not suffering anymore. And you will have removed your vulnerability to sorrow and suffering by no longer identifying with your body mind. And see, I think that last sentence was a good clarification there, because pain is physical pain and harm, I think, is different than sorrow and suffering. And so don't be confused, ladies and gentlemen. However, this is not some trick. It is a here and now means for looking at all your attachments, all of your me and mine. And it's so funny that yesterday was about this letting go of the me and the mine, our letting go of our status and our ego self and our possessions and all of our self-importance, Wayne Dyer continues, and re-identifying ourselves with that which is eternal. Re-identifying ourselves with that which is eternal, ladies and gentlemen. Truly, this works. And you do discover, as Yogananda promises, that all pain is unreal. To make this divine, all sorrow, to make this divine advice come to life for you. This is why you should get this book for yourself. Whoa! Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're going down the elevator there. I'll see you later, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you got a good laugh, because that's so funny. Yes, this is why you should get this book for yourself to put it on your shelf. Oh, it goes again. This chair, it's an old one, and it's giving way, ladies and gentlemen. Right during the video. That's awesome. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is reality. See, this is what life is about. That could have been suffering for me in the past. I could have been like, dang it, I ruined the whole video. I went downwards. But it's hilarious. It doesn't matter. It's funny. And these are the things. This is how we can begin to practically apply this into our life. And that was what I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen. To make this divine advice that comes to us from such great teachers, especially Yogananda, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and Deepak Chopra, and Wayne Dyer, and my ramblings. I'm no great teacher, but if you think so, then thank you. That really means a lot to me, and I hope to get there one day to actually prove you right. And thank you for believing in me, ladies and gentlemen. But the reason you want to get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf, I have it linked in the description below, as well as a free trial to Audible for the audiobook itself. And all of that might help me one day make 10 cents from Amazon. But the real point is to get this physical copy into your life so that whatever goes on, the internet shuts off and the power grid fails, and we've got 2 weeks to sit in our house, and people are sending us food and water, so we're safe and comfy. What are we going to do, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we're going to turn to our bookshelves, at least I would. Or, that's one of the thoughts. It's like, have this for reference in real life. If you forget your phone, if your hard drive crashes, if something weird goes on, ladies and gentlemen, you want to have huge stacks of great wisdom on paper. And so, once again, I have it linked in the description below. Get it for yourself and put it on your shelf, ladies and gentlemen. Boom. Now, the reason you want to do that is because right here at the end of one of these chapters, each of these chapters, Wayne gives us practical advice on how we can apply this wisdom into our life. And so, let's land the plane here with these 4 pieces of advice of how to apply this wisdom of transcending suffering in our lives. Number 1, make an honest assessment of what we feel is the source of your sorrow and suffering. Then begin a practice of repeating to ourselves, the cause of any suffering is in me alone, and I am going to stop blaming anyone or anything for it. Number 2, now make an effort to notice everything you can about your actual state of suffering. If it is just a mental state of sorrow, note where it lives, where it shows up, what its appearance is, and every characteristic you can identify. Number 3, when you find yourself in a state of self-pity, try repeating the words of the Ojibwe to yourself. You will soon see how trivial your self-suffering feelings are in comparison to your eternal soul that knows absolutely nothing of such feelings. And so what were those words before we finish? Let's remind ourselves of that, because that was one of the greater parts here, ladies and gentlemen, is it's like now and then. Okay, so I'm going to catch the spot there. So number 3, when you find yourself in a state of self-pity, try repeating the words of the Ojibwe to yourself and see how trivial our self-suffering feelings are in comparison to our eternal soul. And those words are this, ladies and gentlemen. Now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. And finally, number 4, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, as I always do, Wayne says, what is the lesson for me in this experience? Once I know that I have something to learn from this sorrow, as I have from all the disappointments and sorrows of my life, I can turn that sorrow into a song almost instantly. Boom, ladies and gentlemen, boom to knowledge. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. And I'm glad we got a good laugh, a good comedic reprise there before the finish, because that's some deep stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And I think the main key is to apply this to the smallest things rather than the hugest things. The hugest things are hard, to apply this kind of wisdom to, and it takes great work. You have to have been trying this in small ways for many, many years before you can begin to apply it to the larger things in our life, ladies and gentlemen. But that's the whole purpose of me being here, so we can begin to not only hear about, because you have to know this kind of stuff exists before you can even realize that it's possible, and then you can begin practicing, and then we can begin increasing the quality of our lives, ladies and gentlemen, and not just the quality of our lives, but the quality of the lives of those around us and the future generations that come behind us. And maybe we will create a higher quality world, ladies and gentlemen. Just maybe. So remember, be the change that you want to see. Also, be the mirror, be the example. So when people look out into the world and see you, what do they see? Do they see somebody who is transcending suffering, somebody who is attempting to change their thoughts and change their life for the better, somebody who is bringing happiness to life and no longer striving, but rather arriving? These are all relevant questions, ladies and gentlemen. But until then, thank you so much, and I really love and appreciate everybody. Continue to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and a greater understanding of the reality we live in. Continue to seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. And continue to make happiness the way. Happiness the activity that you bring to life. And then the place that we've been striving to get, where we always tell ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if I get there and get this and these things and those things. If we can make happiness the way, the activity that we bring to life, then all of that becomes irrelevant because we're already where we want it to be, ladies and gentlemen. And then the entire journey is wonderful. Once again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate and love everyone, including those of you who spend time here with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer, Lao Tzu, and all the wonderful authors and poets of the wisdom of the ages. Once again, expand the description below and grab one of my landscape paintings from my Etsy shop. I just updated it yesterday, so I think we got up to 24 listings on there now. And I got about 20 more that'll be coming up today. So we'll have probably 49, maybe close to 50 paintings available on there for you, ladies and gentlemen. Here's my shirt that I made a long time ago, CLC Paint. And if you want one of these shirts, leave me a comment and tell me to start making more shirts because I can do it by the flick of a dime, or what was the old saying, the flick of a hat, the drop of a hat. There we go. And also avail yourselves to some C60 Purple Power. I just ordered me a couple bottles, got that on the way. I love the orange flavor, the ultimate antioxidant, ladies and gentlemen, Buckminster Fullerene. And if you've never heard of C60, give it a little Google search and see what you find out. It's fascinating. All right, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, I'll leave my email below. If A1's listening, or if Mark Flitz, you're out there, I can send you guys out a painting. Just send me an email, and I'd love to, appreciate the support and share the beauty of nature and share the love, because it's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. And also, if you can help me in any way, if you think, and if I can help you in any way you think, feel free to reach out, and I'll see what we can do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Until next Tuesday now and Wednesday Wisdom, you'll see some shorts between now and then. Thank you so much.